Do you remember when everybody was terrified of needles? The idea of injecting anything, a vitamin, a peptide, a hormone, was enough to make somebody faint. And now we are here, like full circle. Everyone has become a wannabe biohacker with a fridge full of vials and alcohol swabs. You've got people microdosing BPC 157. You've got people jabbing themselves with GHK before coffee. And of course, you've got semaglutide and trizipatide, which have turned self-injection into some sort of Sunday ritual. Um, so now we've all decided that needles are what collectively cool, but let's actually talk about what works and what doesn't need a needle. Because not everything that comes in a syringe is superior, and not everything that comes in a capsule is a scam. And that's exactly why compounds like 5-amino 1-MQ and SLU-PP332 come in. So excuse me, we've hit a point here where injectable has become a badge of seriousness. Oh, you're injecting it, it must be real. But there's almost a moral hierarchy now. You know, capsules are for casuals, injectables are for the more committed. But the truth is, the hierarchy just doesn't hold up biochemically. Injectables were never designed to make something more effective for consumers. They were designed for lab control, because if you've ever tried getting a capsule in a rat, you might understand. So researchers use injections to bypass the digestive system and for compliance, so they can measure the direct effect without confounding variables, like a rat not swallowing a capsule, or gut enzymes and liver metabolism. Yeah, so injectables are great for science. But when you take that data and apply it to real world use, you get a lot of people assuming that injectables is better. In some cases, yes, but not always better. Sometimes it's faster, but do we always want faster? The faster something is isn't necessarily what you want, especially when you're working with compounds that affect metabolism, energy, and cellular function. So let's talk about 5-amino 1-MQ. You know me, you know how much I love this stuff. But let's go back how it works. I mean, it's arguably one of the excuse me, my throat. Arguably one of the most misunderstood molecules in the longevity space. People hear 5-amino and they think, oh, it's a peptide. It's not a peptide. It is a small molecule, a single unit. It is not a chain of amino acids. It's not fragile. It's not easily broken down in the stomach. It is a single molecule. A single molecule. How it works? Well, it inhibits NNMT, and that in turn boosts NAD+. We love it. It is a molecule, not peptide, that's associated with longevity, energy, and metabolic health. So higher NAD levels means better mitochondrial performance, improved fat oxidation. It's protective against metabolic slowdown. The list goes on and on and on with this stuff. It's especially good during preserving muscle during calorie restriction. So maybe using a weight loss medication or just the good old-fashioned way. Um, so why do I sell this in a capsule form? Because believe me, I am not scared of needles. But why did I choose this? Um, well, yes, okay. So injectables get in the bloodstream faster, yes. But this is what most people don't realize, or they just don't consider, is 5-amino 1-MQ doesn't need an instant flood. It works through steady signaling. That's why you take it, every day, twice a day, 2 months on, 1 month off. You don't shoot yourself up with it once a week. You're looking for a steady signaling. You don't need a sharp spike. You actually need constant exposure. So when you take 5-amino 1-MQ orally, especially, in a quality capsule, which I jumped through hoops for that, you get a stable level, not some roller coaster. You get more rhythm. And when we're talking about something like a pathway like NAD plus, we want rhythm. We don't want this high intensity and then nothing following it. So, if you want to think about it like exercise, you don't just do one sprint a week and call yourself fit. It's consistency, and it's the same rhythm of consistency, steady supply that applies here. Well, what about the SLU? And for 5-amino, you just go to 5amino.com. What about the SLU PP332 story? So this is often, I hate the nickname, but it's often nicknamed exercise in a bottle. Why is that? It's not a stimulant, it's not a fat burner, get to that. It is a molecule that activates a receptor responsible for fat metabolism. It tells your cells to burn fat. It helps with endurance, it helps with mitochondrial density. Basically, it tricks, if you like that phrase, it tricks your body into behaving like it's been training, even when you haven't been training. But please do train. So when you train, when you're doing endurance training, you are a fat burner. You mobilize fat, and the fat goes and it's burned by the cell. So what SLUPP does, it works with the same receptor that tells the cell to burn fat for fuel in a similar way that it would if you were doing some sort of endurance activity. Um, so SLUPP332 was initially tested through injections in lab animals, again, because that's how the scientists ensure exact dosage delivery. But what matters for humans isn't how fast you can activate that receptor, it's how sustainably you can affect it, you can activate it without stress overload. So injectables often cause a rapid spike in activation, and like anything, that spike also causes crashes, and that's not what we're looking for. So um, let's get to some of the objections with this. Um, I had a girl, and she wanted to just refund or something because she was going to go the injectable way. Whatever, great, do it. But gosh, I wish I'd done a video earlier to explain this to her. Um, what's the big objection? Oh yeah, but oral compounds get destroyed in the stomach. Okay, that's true, but in that case, you're talking about peptides. Compounds like BPC-157, I have it in my fridge. GHKCU, I have it in my fridge. These are peptides, and yes, stomach acid destroys them quickly. But 5-amino and SLUPP, they are small molecules. They are stable enough to survive digestion, and they cross cell membranes. They're lipophilic, which means they can easily pass between through lipid layers like cell walls. So oral absorption isn't just possible; it is effective. Um, so injectables don't always win here because otherwise, believe me, I would have done it. They don't always win here. Oral delivery can sometimes offer a better consistency, a better rhythm, a better exposure because for one, the dose doesn't rely on, how deep you inject it, how clean your vial was, whether your solvents degraded over time. Um, but let's step away from biochemistry and just talk about simple human behavior here. Like I said, 5 years ago, most people would have fainted at a flu shot. Now, thanks to GLP meds, half the country has turned into amateur nurses. People are self-injecting peptides in their bathrooms, bragging about their sub-Q technique, and suddenly they think if it's injectable, it must work. We've absolutely glamorized the syringe. Um, but it's not a badge of honor. It's simply a delivery system. And guys, these are injected sub-Q. You go intramuscular and you might have a different opinion on this. So the irony is the same people the same people that can't even remember to drink enough water religiously, they're compounding vials with bacteriostatic water and like they're running some sort of pharmaceutical lab. This is theater, and sometimes it's dangerous theater because with peptides and research compounds, that you're injecting, it comes with a certain amount of risk. And if that risk isn't necessary because you can use a stable oral compound, um, but let's be brutal here. Injectables sound hardcore, right? until you're traveling, until you're explaining to the to a TSA what your syringes are for, until you realize that you we consider that vial has been sitting in the fridge for 3 weeks, and gosh, is it even still sterile? I don't know. Orals, throw your bottle in your bag and just go. No mixing, no refrigerating, no wondering if you contaminated the vial cap last time you pinned your thigh with it. I don't know. Um, but really, here is the kicker. Um, Taking the orals is more consistent. Consistency is what is driving long-term results. Um, the best compound, in my opinion, these are the ones that you can take consistently, daily, twice a day, a consistent dose. So even when injectables do give a higher bioavailability, that doesn't automatically mean better outcomes. Sometimes you're going to find that the body is going to adapt too quickly to a high, fast dose and then, down regulates receptors afterwards. So a slow, steady oral dosing that can actually maintain sensitivity longer can be way more beneficial. So in the case of these two molecules, the oral delivery gives the best of both worlds. Sustained activation, predictable blood levels, and a real world practicability. So if we're going to strip away the hype, here's the bottom line. Injectables have their place, and for some, they are non-negotiable. Some things have to be right now, um, have to be injected. Now, believe me, with some of the meds, there's some companies coming up with the oral options, but for right now, a lot of the peptides, it has to be injectable. So these very fragile peptides that can't survive digestion, yes, that's what you're doing. But for small molecules, for 5-amino 1-MQ and SLU-PP332, oral dosing is not only viable, but it is actually, in my opinion, again, preferred. We're not chasing spikes. We're building systems. And for body composition, performance, longevity, and fat metabolism, stability and sustainability wins. So the needles might look cool, but progress doesn't come from a method, it comes from a mechanism. And honestly, this is why I'm relieved that the oral formulations shine. So yes, we have the newly converted needle crowd, and they can, they keep the syringes, and I will use them myself, but I will also stick with what works and what is sustainable. Because at the end of the day, it's not about how fast you inject, it's about how well your cells perform. Now, if you want to learn more about 5-amino 1-MQ and SLU-PP332, um, YouTube videos, there's a whole section with videos on it. You can get them on my website, or 5amino.com or SLU332.com. But hopefully that cleared things up. Oh gosh, I'm just hearing this so much that everybody's just so into the needle, and I hope that explains why. Great, but it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, yes, some things that need to be injected every day, but what about this? Maybe you could take it twice a day. You're able to keep a more steady dose without the ups and downs. So that's my little rant about uh, oral versus injectable. I know everybody is super excited, and it's for a lot of people, they've been exposed to this whole new world that, honestly, for me coming from a fitness and bodybuilding background, it's been around for a long, long time. But I understand the excitement when people are exposed to solutions to frustrations that they didn't know about before. And it's easy to get wrapped up in this. But, consistency matters, stability matters. And just because, something's hardcore doesn't necessarily mean it's better. Hope that explained it.